Welcome to, or welcome back to, the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May, and in this video, we're going to look at a piece of paper. I know, how exciting! And if that doesn't suck you in, I don't know what will. It's not just any piece of paper, though. This is a piece of paper that was shared online by Melissa Mancari, and we're going to see where the paper takes us. Melissa Mancari is the former paralegal for Surfside Beach attorney Sarah Wiley and had an interview with Robbie Harvey and then was later on a live with Steph's case files, and I'll link both of those interviews in the description. Surfside Beach is a small town in Horry County and is considered to be part of the Grand Strand. Its nickname is the Family Beach, and I'm pretty sure they mean that to be more wholesome family and not Uncle Giovanni from New York kind of family. In the interview with Robbie Harvey that aired August 29, 2024, Melissa stated she took a phone call from John Paul Miller that led to this piece of paper being created. Well, just the text on the paper. I'm pretty sure the paper was bought at someplace like Staples and created in a paper mill somewhere. If you've never had the pleasure of smelling a paper mill, consider yourself lucky. They smell like sauerkraut that's been left to rot in a swamp and then eaten by a bog monster, regurgitated, left to rot some more, and then filtered through a dirty sock. You can't find this kind of education just anywhere, kids. I'm not sure what the actual name of this piece of paper is, but I'm going to call it a consultation request form. The front of the form is just basic information, so we're going to concentrate on the back page. According to the request, John Paul contacted the Watley Law Firm on 2/7/2024 and was looking for a divorce attorney. The request form shows that John Paul stated that he and Mica didn't own any property together and that the church owned their house. I don't know that that's only referring to real estate, though. I would think it would include any marital property such as vehicles, home furnishings, etc. John Paul sold the house to the church in December of 2023, so the church didn't own the house for the majority of their marriage. I'm not sure how that would have gone for him in court. As an aside, this same request form has been used to disparage Regina Ward online, and people have hinted that there was some impropriety because she referred John Paul to Sarah Watley. Well, do we even know that's true? Maybe John Paul is the one who said that, but hadn't actually spoken to Regina Ward. If she did refer John Paul to Sarah Watley, I would guess that it was because a former attorney who worked with her is the one who handled Allison Williams' case when she filed for divorce against John Paul. It would be more scandalous had Regina taken him on as a client. Also, does anyone know the exact date that Mica began talking to Regina Ward? What if she had already retained her? The form also reads, he is a pastor and has a postnup, looking to file for divorce. Why would John Paul mention that he's a pastor? I'm not sure that would even need to be said unless a pastor has a habit of using his title because he thinks it gives him some kind of credence. It doesn't. I've covered this in the first timeline video I made about Mica's case, but according to a 911 call Mica made in February of 2024, she had never signed the postnuptial agreement. However, John Paul provided a signed copy that was filed in court in February of 2023 with a signature that doesn't look similar to Mica's other signatures. And who signed as a witness, and why isn't there a printed version of their name? The form continues with, quote, wife is in the mental institution as of today, and upon release she will be going with a good friend to live, end quote. Well, that is a loaded statement. Mica was admitted into the hospital at 10:23 a.m. on 2/7/2024. And we know that John Paul took Mica's belongings from her while she was in the hospital, and that included her phone. He even admitted in an email to Mica that he had her phone and she could pick it up whenever she wanted. I have shown in other videos that John Paul had to have taken Mica's phone from the hospital on the day she was committed. But let's look again. This is a text between Mica, her brother Nate, and John Paul. Now this text was prior to Mica being committed because she knew the police were looking for her. In order for the text message to show yesterday, the screenshot had to have been taken the day after the text was written. So John Paul took Mica's belongings from her the day she was committed under the premise of being her husband, but that same day he was calling to find a divorce attorney. Yes, it was technically legal for him to take her belongings from the hospital, but it was also underhanded, smarmy, and just super uncool. From the consultation intake form, it sounds like he had planned on Mica not returning home after she was released from the hospital. I've tried to get a definitive answer on whether or not Mica went to live with Diana immediately after getting out of the hospital or if she stayed with someone else first, but I haven't received an answer yet. There is a sermon from March 10th, 2024, where John Paul is talking about how Mica went to the hospital, drained his bank account, and just left him.
And she came back with the idea to start a school in Africa. And 6 weeks ago, she goes in the hospital, gets out, and just leaves. Just completely leaves me, leaves everything, drains the bank account, and goes.
But here we have him telling the law office that he knew she wouldn't be back home. We have a police report that talks about Mica being notified of an eviction. So why would John Paul go and take Mica's things from the hospital if he wasn't planning on her coming back home? Does that seem like an ethical thing to do? I'll give you a hint to the answer to that question. It's no. What was in her phone that he needed so badly that he started taking screenshots the same day he got it? What was the real purpose for Mica needing to be committed? Because I don't believe it was for anything that was written on that form filled out by Faith Green from Waccamaw Mental Health. The more I look at this case and then look at it again with new information, the more I think that Mica had knowledge about events and people and practices that would be extremely detrimental to John Paul and to Solid Rock at Market Common. The last statement on the consultation form is, quote, "Is very good friends with Tom Winslow and had a consult with Nicole, but feels that she is too nice and is looking for someone not nice and more aggressive and then it cuts off. Nicole Gaddis is an attorney who works for Tom Winslow, and John Paul had used her as his attorney when Mica had filed for divorce in October of 2023. In the interview that Melissa had with Robbie Harvey, she claimed that John Paul had told her he wanted a shark and wanted an attorney that would destroy Mica. Was that actually what he said, or was it just that he wanted a not nice, aggressive attorney? Coincidentally, that email from John Paul to Mica that I showed a few minutes ago has this phrase in it, quote, "The Bible says, if you walk with wise men, you will become wise, but associate with fools and you will be destroyed," end quote. On September 9th, 2024, Melissa was on Steph's case files and claimed that John Paul showed up at Sarah Watley's law office and, quote, "He yells out, like a hello, anybody there type thing. And so she yells out, 'We'll be right with you.' His response is, 'Oh no, I'm going to follow the sound of the voices.' And he decides to not wait in the lobby, which is what legally he should have done. He decides to trespass down the hallway on private property all the way back to the offices," end quote. She also claimed that, quote, "So then he goes on to say, 'Well, is it just you two in here? Is there anybody else in here?' We're obviously not answering his questions." So then he proceeds to walk around the office, go room to room, like he's trying to get a mental layout or look at the windows, where could those pictures have come from type thing. "Oh, I think this picture was taken from this window here." Sarah is telling him he needs to leave. It's nuts. It's truly nuts. So we do eventually get him out of the office, but not before, he was harassing us. It was threatening. He kept shoving this video in our face. Then he was telling, us not to talk to anybody about it and not to talk to the FBI, not to send those. Do the FBI have those photos? Don't send them to the FBI, end quote. John Paul sued Melissa for slander, and it's currently under mediation, which means they're using a mediator to work out the lawsuit in lieu of holding a trial. I've talked before about how people who are being deceptive often use present tense when retelling an event or mixing up their tenses between past and present. And this is because they practice their story in present tense and then forget to switch to past tense when telling it. If you go listen to Melissa Mancari telling the story about John Paul on Steph's case files, almost everything she says about it is in present tense. Why does this piece of paper look like it has been beaten up, ran over, put back through the printer, and then slapped across the face? I also wondered why it looked like the pic was taken in someone's house. In the background of the photo, there's a puzzle on a kitchen table with a chair that has black upholstery. From some of her other posts on social media, I am about 99% positive this was taken at Melissa's house. If so, why did she have John Paul Miller's consultation intake form at her house? I'm going to bet that most law firms don't abuse the paperwork before filing it, so how did this one get more rumpled looking than Russell Long on a Monday morning? It looks like it was hurriedly folded up and shoved inside someone's purse. Maybe this particular piece of paper was headed for the trash, so taking it didn't seem like that big of a deal. But considering it has personal information on it, I'd think it would have been shredded. The iPhone guru, who has been reporting on this case since the beginning, was in a live on Steph's case files on January 26, 2025, and I'll post the video link in the description. In that live, he said that Melissa had contacted him before JP sued her and asked him if he knew who was following him. He told her he didn't, and she said that she had the software to look up license plates if he wanted her to. Now, was that software at the law office? Interestingly enough, True Crime recently posted a video on TikTok that allegedly showed Robbie Harvey texting someone. And I can't share her video or screenshots of it, but it was basically Robbie asking a certain someone to run plates for him. This certain someone had also mentioned that they were going to be working with the doors locked. And Robbie asked the someone if they wanted him to release the full interview. So when Melissa was talking on Steph's live, she mentioned that they were going to work at the law offices with the doors locked. And this was right after Robbie had released Melissa's interview, so I think there's a pretty good chance that Robbie was texting Melissa Mancari. And Ree acted like Robbie was the one doing something wrong, but it's not illegal to ask someone to look up a license plate, especially if that person offered. However, depending on who owned the software, the person running plates without a good reason might be in trouble. At some point, Melissa and Ree had become buddies even after Ree had posted disparaging videos about her. When Melissa was on Steph's case files, she didn't just talk about John Paul Miller. She also had this to say, quote, "For the ones who were talking about True Crime Ree, she's not a real person. That's not a real person. That's been investigated. We're under the suspicion that the live that she did was an AI-generated live, but that lady, that name, that doesn't exist. She's really not Shannon or Sharon or whoever everybody thinks she is," end quote. I don't know who called her Shannon, but from now on, her name is Ree Shannon. Did Melissa really think Ree Shannon wasn't a real person, or was she already covering for her? I've always felt like Melissa's story was just a little hinky. I've even wondered if the entire thing was a setup and even a conspiratorial setup. Maybe John Paul felt like if he had a fall guy who he could threaten to sue for $6 million, that would stop the protesters and possibly stop content creators from talking about him. Well, shucky darn to heck and back, that didn't work, you putz. It doesn't seem like the lawsuit against Melissa was filed for long before it went to a mediator. Maybe that's a normal thing for lawsuits, though. Maybe Melissa was just exaggerating how the interaction between her and John Paul actually happened. Maybe she decided that she liked the attention she was getting on social media and made the story bigger and more exciting. These are just some of the odd thoughts and maybes that go through my brain. I think, if nothing else, this piece of paper shows us that John Paul knew that Mica wasn't going to go back home after being in the hospital. He knew he was going to look for a divorce attorney that same day. And I think he knew that taking Mica's belongings was just a scummy thing to do. What was on Mica's phone that was so important? All those mentioned in this video are innocent until proven guilty, even if they are being investigated by the FBI. And yes, my dears, the FBI is still actively interviewing people in the investigation of a certain someone. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about Melissa Mancari's interviews in the comments, and what you think might have been on Mica's phone, allegedly. Please like, subscribe, and share as this helps my channel grow. For added perks, become a member on Patreon through the link that is in the description of the video. Until next time, stay safe and be happy.